Hey friend, welcome to Milk and Honey with Lemon. The Bible says in Numbers 14:8, and if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into that land and give it to us. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. On this podcast, we talk about stepping into that overflow that God has for us by becoming those ultimate Proverbs 31 women. Hey, I'm Lemon. I am just like you, sister friend. I knew God had something more in store for me, but I couldn't see a way out of the laundry piles. And frankly, I resented that Proverbs 31 woman. How was I going to live up to the hype? That is until I found out how to really step into becoming this Proverbs 31 woman through leadership development. In this podcast, you're going to find financial freedom, leadership growth, and motivation so you'll be able to do all the things God has called you to do with ease and really step into that land of milk and honey. Welcome back to the Milk and Honey podcast. I'm your host, Lemon Price. And today I want to talk about the impact that we make. Because I guarantee if you're listening to this podcast, then you are somebody who cares about community impact, impacting your home, impacting organizations you care about, all those kind of things. If you listen to this podcast, that I'm going to make that assumption about you. And I know they always say you shouldn't assume, but I'm going to assume that about you. Because I think as Christian women, especially, we like to be involved. We like to be impactful. And so I was thinking excessively about this, actually, for the last couple of weeks. I want to go way back here for a minute to prohibition, all of these kind of big movements that have happened typically happen because it was women who actually got things done. They were involved in their community. And they got things done because they weren't at work. And so I almost think sometimes that this big push for women to go into the workforce, but then also solve all the same responsibilities at home, I think part of it was a design by the enemy to in this way, right? In the go work 40 plus hours a week, climb the corporate ladder, all those kind of things. I think sometimes that it's a push from the enemy, and I don't mean for everyone because I don't think we're all called to the same things. However, there was this mass exodus of women who left the home and went into the workforce, and right, that's where we see a degradation of society. We see more crime happening, fatherlessness happening, all these things are happening that have come out of that movement of women leaving the home. And so I think about what women were able to get accomplished. Even, I don't know if you guys remember the movie Mary Poppins, but that's what the mom did. She was community involved. While I am not saying that Mrs. Banks from Mary Poppins is the ideal woman by any means, but what I am saying is that she had help in her community, and so therefore she was able to be community involved. She was part of the suffrage movement. We see that throughout history, that women are change makers. Women are the reason prohibition existed. Women were, and historically have been, more community involved. And so it's funny that Michelle Schaefer she's a good friend of mine. She's been on this podcast now a few times. She went to an event a few weeks ago and all they talked about was community impact. She was in a room with dozens and dozens of wealthy Christians who were supporting charities and involved in their community and doing all of these things because they have the time and the resources to do. And so I've just been thinking about this a ton lately. I have always wanted to be in the DAR. I have all the paperwork. I always just was waiting until we were settled in a place to be a little bit more community involved, trying to decide, are we going to stay here? Are we going to move? What are we going to do? And so always trying to decide, what are we going to do? And then I'll get more community involved, which I know the Lord has spoken to me and been stop doing that. You thrive in community and hosting and all those things. That's the way in which I personally thrive, is being involved. And so I was actually having this conversation with Brandy the other day, and she was just on the podcast too, talking about this Proverbs 31 woman. And so we were having this conversation. And during that conversation, we were just talking about more community involvement, getting offline, being an active member of our community, all those kind of things. And she was like, do you want to do it because you are looking fill time, you've created some space, you're looking to fill time, or what is it for you? And so I had to sit and think about it. I'm like, why do I want to be more involved? And there's things that I'm doing to be more involved, and I'll share some of that stuff later. But I was thinking about it, and I've always been this way. Always. When I went to undergrad in South Carolina, my tuition, I want to say, and now this was 2008, my tuition, even going to school out of state, was only about $6,000 a year. And it's because I had enough scholarships and things from my community involvement to pay for school. So it's always something I've done. I have been, and this is not to like toot my own horn, but this fulfills me. So when I was in sixth grade, I started coaching cheerleading for the recreation department. I was coaching first and second graders, of course I'm not the head coach by any means, but I'm teaching the cheers. I'm doing the choreography. I'm doing all those things because frankly, I love the adults, but none of them had ever cheered before. And they were the head coaches. And then they relied on me to teach these 6 and 7-year-olds what I knew at 12. And which is fine, totally fine, can do. And so thinking about that, like that was my first real exposure to like being super community involved. My grandparents were involved like politically and things like that. That was normal for me. And then as I got older, I'm teaching dance and now I'm doing, what do they call it? It was Big Brothers, Big Sisters. So I did that program. I volunteered at our elementary school. Like I was very community involved and I liked it. I grew up in a smaller town of like 22,000 people. People knew me everywhere I went. And it wasn't that recognition, but people could count on me to do things. And I was involved and I could make a difference. And I'm working with youth and all these things that matter to me. And so when I first moved to Georgia, I did the same thing. I was like, let me get back into cheerleading. Let me get back into the things that I enjoy doing. And I like being out in the community. I like being surrounded by people who care about the same things that I do and being able to make a difference. And all that matters to me. And so I was sitting here thinking about it. And Michelle had this conversation too about just the impact people are able to make. And so we've really made a shift, at least like at Kingdom Alliance, I made a shift into talking about the proof of impact and how are people being impacted by being here. And so it's really cool to see what's come out of even just having that conversation, but then also being like, yeah, I have this space to go and impact in more ways than just my household, because now I've seen it in my household. I've seen what my involvement, direct involvement, intentional involvement can do in my household. Oliver and Wyatt are showing up completely differently. Glenn has different dreams and aspirations and things for his life because of the intentionality here. And so I'm like, okay, they're all on a good trajectory and I can keep, us all moving forward because I'm growing too with them. But also then with this time that I've created, how am I giving back? How am I getting involved? I think that we personally, as women, do better when we're involved, when there is something we're passionate about outside of work, outside of our family, outside of even church sometimes. It can look like that, but what are you passionate about? There was an organization that I belonged to for a while and I loved it. We were working with women who I was at a Christian crisis pregnancy center and doing mentorship through them. And I loved it. I loved going and having lunch. I loved going to dinners and dropping stuff off at the community. Like it just felt good to be involved in doing something outside of myself that wasn't necessarily church mandated. It wasn't my job to do it. I just did it because it fulfilled me. And so I want to ask you, with the free time that you've created because you work for yourself, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, or I don't know, even if you have a 9 to 5, do you have a weekend, a month or something, a Saturday morning, even once a quarter that you could go and pour back out into something you care about? Is there something in your community that irritates you and you wish somebody would do something about it? Maybe that's a call for you to do something about it. Maybe you could get a group of friends who care about this same issue. Maybe there's a playground in your area that needs to be rehabbed. Like, could you and your spouse and some other people and their spouses, could you guys all get together and go clean up that playground? Is that something you could do? How is it that you are pouring back out the gifts and talents that we have? are not for us. And I've said this so many times. They're not for us. They're not about us. They have nothing to do with us. All we are called to do with them is to sow into them. We should steward those gifts and talents with excellence. Then also go out and use it. Because what is the verse? I'll have to look it up. But it says, if you're called to teach, then teach. If you're called to prophesy, then prophesy. If you're called to encourage, then encourage. If that's your gift, go out and use it. Your gift is not for you. It is for other people. How can you use your gifts to go have a positive impact on your immediate community? And I say that, your immediate community. And I was just talking to Elizabeth about this too. And Elizabeth was just on the podcast last week. But we were talking about it. And what if we just got offline for a little bit? I know because of COVID, everybody's so used to doing everything online. But what if we got offline? What if you actually went and talked to people face to face? What if you built real connection? What would that do for you and your community? That's what I want to encourage you to do today. Find something local. Find something in your area that excites you, that lights you up, something that you want to be involved in. And then reach out to them. How can you get involved? What is something that you could do to start making a difference? Is there a group of you? What can you do? So that's what I want to encourage you with today. I know this is short and sweet, but I want to encourage you to turn the podcast off. Stop getting on all the Zoom meetings. Stop consuming yourself with whatever's happening on social media or whatever it is. Like, get offline. Go unplug. Go have real, genuine human connection, and then go out and impact your community. I promise when you do, it will fulfill you in ways that I cannot begin to describe for you. That's my encouragement today, is go find something that lights you up. And then go out and be impactful. Go out and use the gifts and talents, skills, resources, etc. that God has given you, and go use it for people who are not in your immediate circle. Go use it for people that you've probably never spoken to before. People that may never know that you were the one who helped them. If it's cleaning up your park, minus a few people, nobody's probably going to know that you're the one who cleaned up a park. But everybody's going to benefit because of it. And that's what I want to encourage you to do today. So I hope you have an incredible rest of your week, my friend. And I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey friend, what a joy it has been to share today's journey with you. If you found a spark of inspiration or a nugget of wisdom that resonated, would you bless someone else by sharing this episode with them? It could be the encouragement they need to step into their purpose and calling. Also, if you could spare a moment to leave a review, it would mean the world to me. I really appreciate your feedback, and it really helps our community grow. Remember, the road to discovering God's call for you isn't one you have to walk alone. So join me again next Monday for another episode where we'll continue to explore the depths of leadership and the heights of our heavenly calling. Until then, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep trusting in His plan. God bless you, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye, friend.